us come into your presence, Lord. Let us come into your holy place. Let us come into your presence, Lord. Let us see your face. Let us see your face.
Welcome back to Lesson 2 of our special Street Level Messiah small group study. Last week we looked at how Jesus, Messiah, made himself available. As busy as he was, Jesus made himself available to his creation. In this week's lesson, we're going to look at just how authentic Jesus was at street level. So, Jody, what do you mean when you say that Jesus was authentic?
I guess I mean he was real, he was genuine, wasn't a figment of their imagination that somebody dreamed up, or even some of the ridiculous pagan gods of the day. People invented gods for everything, it seems. He was different. He was authentic. He was real when we look at what the Bible records about him. You remember the textual basis for our lesson, the whole series, is John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. And then dropping down to verse 14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So since he was flesh and blood, I guess he would have to face some of the same things that I face, some of the same things you face, and to endure that. And if it didn't match up, then it wouldn't seem authentic, wouldn't seem real to me anyway.
So give me a specific or some example of how the Bible shows the authenticity of Jesus and his story.
Well, according to the handout and what we're going to look at here for just a minute, take the passage there in Luke chapter 1, beginning at verse 26. Let me just read this. It says, in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary, and having come in, the angel said to her, rejoice, highly favored one, the Lord is with you, blessed are you among women. Well, I guess as I look at that, first of all, my first reaction would be she would have to be startled. For this to be real, for it to be authentic, she'd have to be just startled, and an angel suddenly appears in the room. Some versions translate that she was confused, or even one version says she was baffled at this when this angel comes, because it says when she saw him, verse 29, she was troubled or confused, baffled at this saying, and considered what manner of greeting this was. Then the angel said to her, do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God, and behold, you will conceive in your womb and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Highest, and the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David. And he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and his kingdom, of this kingdom there shall be no end. I mean, everything within Mary would have to just be screaming, what are you talking about?
I think so.
I mean, how does this happen? And she says, in fact, in verse 34, how can this be? I do not know a man, or I'm a virgin. How can it be that this would even be a possibility? Her mind just had to be almost exploding with these kinds of ideas. No wonder it says she was confused or troubled. Now, just imagine taking that same text and reading that, and Mary saying, okay, and just accept, everything's fine, sure, all right, thank you, appreciate you coming by. And, there would be no authenticity to that. She was confused, she was troubled, she asked questions, and to me, that just shows that real nature of it.
Yeah, it's not just a robotic answer. The Message Bible says, she was thoroughly shaken, wondering what was behind a greeting like that.
Okay, right.
An angel shows up and says, hey, here's what's going on.
Right, yeah, to me, it shows how real or genuine, authentic this account is. He really is coming to us at street level.
So this is an authentic, real announcement of Jesus as Messiah. And so now as we break, we want you to go into your small groups and discuss some of these things. And I really want to encourage you, we want to encourage you to put yourself in Mary's shoes. Don't just settle for the churchy answers or what you think is the right answer. As we're talking about Jesus being real and authentic, be real with each other as you discuss Jesus, the street level Messiah. Welcome back. We hope you're enjoying these studies and in this special small group format, which gives us all the opportunity to study about Jesus in a warm, kind of more intimate environment. And so in the second segment, we're going to look at a few of the many incidents in Jesus' life that further demonstrate his authenticity.
Okay, well, before you go any further, let me ask you, out of the ones that we listed on the handout, which one stands out to you the most that just shows his authenticity?
Okay, so after looking and trying to decide, I picked John chapter 11.
Okay.
Because there are a couple reasons. Number one, John 11:35 is every child's favorite memory verse. If you have to pick from a list, John 11:35, Jesus wept, that's my go-to.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. Let's do that one, Mom. That's right.
But then as I got older, I've heard entire sermons devoted to just those two words of that one verse. Because there's a lot of emotion packed into that one verse. We're seeing the real Jesus. He cried when a friend of his died. And as we've looked at the real Jesus, and as we're thinking about in this study, I'm sure Jesus got tired. I'm sure rejection by the people he created, it had to get to him at times. And as he shows up and he comes to the setting in verse 33, he says, when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews came with her, were weeping also, he groaned in his spirit and was troubled. And then in verse 35, Jesus wept. Here's his real friends, maybe a real source of strength for him. And when he sees this friend of his has passed, he gets emotional about it. And there's a question I have. I want to throw back to you is, it seems from the text, and especially at the beginning of John 11, that Jesus knew Lazarus was going to die.
Right.
Verse, verse 4, when Jesus hears about it, he says the sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God. Later on, it says in verse 6 that he delays his trip 2 more days. If you know your friend is that bad sick, why do you delay 2 days? So maybe he even knows that Lazarus is going to die.
Right.
He knows he's going to raise him from the dead. So why does he still get emotional about that? What do you think about that?
Well, I guess because he's real. I mean, just the authentic nature of Jesus. We looked at his birth. We've talked about it and making himself available. Here he had developed a relationship, had built a friendship with Lazarus, and now he gets this news. It's devastating to him. It's hard for him to deal with this news, even if he chooses to know what he's going to do the next or a couple of days later. To me, it just strikes the reality of it, that he's genuine, gets this news, and he's overcome, and he's caught up with the rest of them. I mean, you've been in those situations.
Amen.
You go into a family's home, there's a death of a loved one. Even if you don't know that person, it's a very difficult thing to do, to remove yourself from that. And I'm guessing he's caught up in the same thing, just the reality of who he is.
Well, and the reason why I guess I picked that one is we sometimes, I feel like, hold back our emotions. We do it in worship sometimes because maybe we're afraid of it becoming just emotion. We sometimes hold back even with our emotions with opening up to one another, and maybe we're afraid of making ourselves vulnerable. One of the things I'm thankful for is that the gospel writers showed us the real Jesus. So which one stands out most to you? Which one did you pick?
Yours is a whole lot better than mine, I guess. I looked at it and thought about in Mark 11, where Jesus gets angry when he's dealing with people who are playing the hypocrite with hypocrisy. Sadly, I mean, I can see myself in the situation or the sense of not being able to sometimes keep myself in check as far as my emotions. Not saying that Jesus wasn't in check, but I mean, he goes here in Mark chapter 11, beginning of verse 15, he goes to the temple, he sees the house of God having been turned into a den of robbers, and I mean, this is not the picture we often have of Jesus, but he goes in and he's literally throwing tables over. He's driving out the animals and the people, and he shows himself to be extremely real and authentic. He is really angered at what the people are doing to God. And I guess if I was one of the gospel writers and was making this up, I would try to make him more heroic and not show any what might be thought of as a negative side to him. But this shows to me the real street level. He really did get angry. He's really upset. It's not like he's just kind of, oh, well, let's have you leave. Right. I mean, he's turning over tables. He's just making this grand statement in front of everybody.
Yeah, it's not just a Jesus we made up. It's not a watered down Jesus. It's not a pacified Jesus. We get, in the first example, an emotional Jesus, but then he, just like us, God has more than one side. God has a personality.
Sure.
I mean, so you're going to notice on your handout several authentic moments Jesus had as he interacted with people. And we're trying to see, as you and I have been discussing, the real Jesus, not the ivory tower Jesus, right. Not the distant God, not the Jesus we created, but the real Jesus. And I hope you're starting to see that as we go through these studies, a true street level Messiah. And also we want to remind you, don't forget, the purpose of these small groups isn't just to study and say, oh, well, hey, wasn't that neat? Right. Let's go home today. But it's to help us be more like Jesus. And so once again, as we pointed your attention last week, we want to draw your attention to that red box, that application section. And we want to encourage you, be real with yourself as you discuss that application section.
Yeah, and that is the tougher part. I mean, it's fun, as you say. It's nice to get together with a group, in a small group like you're doing maybe at somebody's home right now. But to put that reality to it yourself of saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to try to be more like Jesus.
Say, if we're going to study the real Jesus, then we need to seek to be more like him. And may we all be more like Jesus. Right. So enjoy your study, and we will see you next week.
Let us come into your presence, Lord. Let us come into your holy place. Let us come into your presence, Lord. Let us see your face. Let us come.